Hey, good morning, everyone. Grant Cohn here. The draft is over. I'm home. It's a long weekend. And, the draft usually goes the same way every year. The Niners pick someone in round one, and everyone scratches their head. And fans are pretty upset. But that's Thursday night. By Sunday, I want to say 85% of fans are ecstatic about the draft that just finished. It's the mental gymnastics you have to do in order to enjoy being a fan. So I understand. I'm not a fan. I don't do those mental gymnastics. So I'm going to break down how I feel about this draft. And I'd love to hear how you guys feel about it as well. I'm going to go player for player, one at a time. And then I'm going to give a big picture final grade at the end. Big picture final grade. Because I think the wrong way to evaluate a draft is player by player. What were they trying to accomplish? Look big picture. But first, let's go player by player and sort of take it. Let's relive the draft. Starting in round one, Ricky Pearsall. Pick 31. Niners come into the draft with a few goals. Number one, get better. That's always the goal. You don't want to get worse, but you want to get better now because you didn't win the Super Bowl. You're one of the older teams in the league. You're on the verge of missing an opportunity to win a Super Bowl with the best team in football. Get better now. Also, get an offensive tackle. It's a great year to get an offensive tackle. There's a lot of very good ones. A lot of offensive tackles who are better than Colton McKivitz right now. Upgrade at a very important premium position. That was another goal. And then improve the run defense. It was subpar last year, and the Niners didn't necessarily make it better in the offseason. They got rid of Eric Armstead. Dre Greenlaw won't be back for a while. And you'd like to see them add more. So those are three things. Get better now, get an offensive tackle, address the run defense. Round one, they take a wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall. And when they take him, you're thinking, okay, well, this is strange because they don't need a wide receiver now. But the fact that they're taking this one in round one makes you think, okay, well, they're going to trade Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, right? Wrong. So this is a pick for 2025. He could be the slot receiver in 2025 after Jawan Jennings leaves. Or he could replace Brandon Ayuk. Maybe the Niners won't extend Brandon Ayuk long-term, or maybe they'll get rid of Deebo Samuel next year. He's sort of the next guy up to start next year. But that doesn't help you this year. And he's almost 24. So when he's up for an extension in 4 years, he'll be almost 28. Give a 3, 4, 5-year extension to a 28-year-old wide receiver. Like, that's what you want, ideally, when you draft a player in round one, to extend his contract and have him be on the team for a long time, not just 4 years. The guys you just want for 4 years, that's guys you take in rounds 2, 3, 4. Round one, you're hoping to extend him. Pearsall, I'd be kind of surprised if he gets a second contract with the 49ers. He'll be old by then. Now, he's a good athlete. He was phenomenal at the combine. Fast, quick, explosive, off the charts in every single measurement. But what's concerning about him is that if he didn't get the 5th year of eligibility, if COVID never happened and he was only allowed to play 4 years in college, he might not have gotten drafted. His resume was that of an undrafted free agent until a few months ago. Then, as a 23-year-old 5th-year senior, he broke out. And when I say broke out, he didn't have 1,000 yards, but he broke out. And now he's a first-round pick on a team that doesn't have a need. Like, let's compare the Niners and the Chiefs. The Niners are the best team in the league, or in their own minds. They just can't beat the Chiefs. Chiefs are that one team in their way. I don't know if the Niners take them seriously or they think it's just fluky, but the Chiefs are champions. And in round one, they also took a wide receiver, but they traded up for theirs, and their wide receiver is going to play this year. Xavier Worthy is going to play for the Chiefs. A lot. And 3 receiver sets, their receivers are going to be Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy. And if Rashee Rice gets suspended for who knows how long, then this guy could play a whole lot. So that was an important pick for them. They filled a need and got a guy who's going to make an impact right away, assuming he's not a bust. And that's the best team in the league. Those are champions. The Niners passively stood pat at their pick and took a guy that'll help them in 2025. Now, it's possible that Pearsall wasn't their first choice. If you remember, when they were on the clock, they used all 10 minutes. So it's possible the Niners had a different plan in round one, and when whatever player they really wanted was picked, they scrambled. It seems like they've been doing a little bit of that this offseason. They thought they were going to get Eric Kendricks, and they didn't. They thought they were going to be able to get Eric Armstead to take a pay cut, and they weren't. So let's say the Niners wanted an offensive tackle in round one. That was the number one goal, right? Get one of these really good offensive tackles. Every other team did. Maybe they wanted Jordan Morgan. A lot of people mocked Jordan Morgan to the Niners at 31. Maybe they thought he'd be there at 31. Instead, he got drafted by the Packers, who run the same system. So if he fits the Packers, he fits the 49ers. The Packers take him at 25, and the Niners are sitting there being like, well, damn. Now we wanted that guy. We could take Roger Rosengarten here in round one, like Mel Kiper predicted, but that would have been a reach. So instead of reaching for an offensive tackle, I think my audio's messed up. It's too bad. Let me give it a second to catch up for a second. Yeah, I think it's time to get a new computer. I'm good. Are we good? Sorry about that. My computer just freezes up. We're good? All right. So instead of taking the offensive tackle, reaching for one, they take Pearsall. He may be a good player. What concerns me about him is that reminds me of Dante Pettis. 180-something pounds. He's supposed to be tough. He's supposed to be a returner. What's he going to play like when he gets smacked for the first time? And people say he's a great athlete. Okay, sure. I mean, the combine proves that. But if he's such a dominant athlete, 4.4, off the charts in the short shuttle, in the 3-cone drill, why couldn't he do anything as a college football player until he was 23? If he's so dominant, I don't understand that. So I wasn't that enthusiastic about this pick, and I don't believe he was the Niners' first choice in round one. But he may end up being a productive player for them when he finally gets on the field next year. He'll be the punt returner this year and maybe the fourth receiver. So, like, if Deebo Samuel gets hurt, Pearsall will play. And Samuel does get hurt. He misses games. He misses time. So he better be ready to play Ricky Pearsall next round two. So I'm theorizing that Ricky Pearsall wasn't their first choice in round one, that maybe they wanted an offensive tackle. Maybe they wanted Jordan Morgan. He wasn't there. Round two, now we know the Niners are looking at Roger Rosengarten. They've been linked to him all offseason. They went to his pro day. They're picking 64, and they're just waiting. Offensive tackle after offensive tackle is going off the board, and like the Ravens, who've done their homework, must have known that the Niners wanted Rosengarten. Everyone knew the Niners wanted Rosengarten. He fits their scheme. He's exactly the kind of guy they were looking for, and the Ravens just casually take him at 63, which seemed like it surprised the hell out of the 49ers because then they traded down. It seemed like they thought Rosengarten was just going to fall into their laps at 64, and they'd get their offensive tackle, and they would accomplish one of their main goals in the draft. But it didn't happen. Ravens got him. And I feel like this is where the draft kind of went off the rails for the Niners a little bit. Like, ideally, you get the offensive tackle in round one. That's a premium position. It's hard to find good ones later. You tried to get cute. So like, one that you wanted didn't fall to you in round one. You could have traded up for Jordan Morgan, but that would have been expensive maybe. So you try to get cute and wait till round two thinking, oh, okay, Rosengarten will be there. He's not. So they trade down and take a corner in round two, which feels like it's not something that they were planning on doing because the Niners don't take corners in round two. It's the first time they took a corner in round two in 20 years. So it didn't feel like their number one choice. And all of a sudden now 2 rounds have gone by and you haven't taken an offensive lineman. So Renardo Green, I mean, he's fine. He played at Florida State. He's another guy who played 5 years in college. Didn't really do much until the end. Committed a lot of penalties in college. He might be better than Ambry Thomas. He might not. He really feels like another pick for 2025 because remember, the Niners signed 2 corners this offseason, Rock Yassin and Isaac Yadam. Odds are one of those 2 guys will be the corner in the nickel defense and not Renardo Green. So maybe Renardo Green will be a starter. Maybe he'll replace Travarius Ward or Diamador Lenore or one of those other veterans in 2025. But again, this is, to me, like Pearsall, a plan B pick, and it's addresses 2025. The first 2 picks are guys who aren't going to contribute. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl, got that wide receiver in round 1 who's going to start for them. And then in round 2, they traded up with the Niners because they liked the offensive tackles that were available, and they took Kingsley Suamataia from BYU. The Niners didn't want him because apparently he doesn't fit their scheme. But what's funny is if the Niners and the Chiefs end up facing each other in the Super Bowl again this year, they might have to see that guy, Suamataia. And what are they going to do? Complain that he's holding? He could have been holding for you. So interesting. The Niners pigeonholed themselves into only a couple of offensive tackles who fit their scheme, didn't get either of them, and pivoted to a corner who they won't play for a while. Not super enthusiastic about this draft. Instead of getting players you like, that's what the Chiefs did, right? We want Worthy, we want Suamataia, boom, boom. Those are our guys. We like them. Especially like this is a top-heavy draft without depth. Trade up, find the guys you like and go get them. The Niners found the guys they liked and waited and missed out. That's what it looked like to me. You wanted to get an offensive tackle. You talked about it. You were waiting for Rosengarten. You were waiting for Jordan Morgan. You got neither of them. So you end up getting a wide receiver in a corner. You don't desperately need either one. You got depth for 2025 with your first 2 picks. Was that the goal? You didn't address your offensive line. You didn't address your defensive line. You didn't address your run defense. You didn't address your team for 2024. So I didn't really like that pick. Let's move on to round 3. This is where it gets interesting. Okay. Round 3. Now the Niners are scrambling. They wanted to get an offensive lineman earlier, most likely. They thought, hold on. I don't know why this is doing this, dude. Hold on. Wait a second. The audio's tripping. Okay. Round 3. Get an apple, they say. Yeah, I'm getting one. Round 3. They thought they were going to get an offensive tackle in round 2. They didn't. So what do they do in round 3? Now they trade up for an offensive lineman. Now they're desperate because if they wait until after round 3, they're gone. They need an offensive lineman. They trade up for Dominic Puni at the end of round 3, and he's a guard. And what they say afterward, why do they like Puni so much? You didn't trade up for Morgan. You didn't trade up for Rosengarten. You crossed your fingers and hoped they fell to you, and they didn't. Then in round 3, out of desperation, you trade up for like the last offensive lineman you like, Dominic Puni, who's a guard. And after that day 2, John Lynch says the reason they like Puni so much is because he could play all 5 positions. He could play a little bit at center. He could play some tackle. So when you talk about an offensive lineman who can play all 5 positions, what I'm hearing is he's backup. He's Daniel Brunskill. He's a guy that if he becomes a starter, great. But it's the end of round 3. most likely, he won't be a starter. He'll be a do everything backup. That's what you got. Ideally, he'd be playing right tackle for this team, but they're going to start him at guard. And I highly doubt he plays as a rookie. It looks like the Niners looked at the guard market and saw non-Pro Bowl guards getting paid $16, $17 million a year and realized they probably can't re-sign Aaron Banks next year, even if he doesn't make a Pro Bowl, because the offensive line market's crazy. So they got Puni. But the goal was to get an offensive tackle. If you think, I do not think he'll play right guard. I don't. They're going to go with John Feliciano. They don't really play. They don't like. They're going to go with John Feliciano at right guard. So I didn't like this pick very much. You need an offensive tackle, you missed. And in desperation in round 3, you trade up for the best one left, and he's a guard. I mean, Brunskill was pretty good. Yeah. It's okay. But it's like, is Puni going to be better than Feliciano one day? Is Puni going to be better than Banks one day? To me, he doesn't make you better now, and he doesn't make you better in the future. He might replace a guy, but like if he replaces Banks, Banks is better. He'll just be cheaper than Banks. So I just think it's kind of ironic that they needed a tackle. They got a guard who can do a little bit of everything. And they didn't trade up in round 1 or round 2, but they traded up for the guard in round 3. You know what's crazy is the Niners have a terrible history of trading up in round 3 and round 4, and they did it again. When they trade up in round 3, it's usually Kyle Shanahan saying, I need this player for my offense. You should have traded up in round 2. You could have traded up 2 spots, 1 spot, and gotten Roger Rosengarten. Instead, you end up with a guard, which is fine. But it's not hard to find guards. You haven't drafted an offensive tackle since Jalen Moore. Here are the offensive tackles you've drafted, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, since you've been here. Jalen Moore, Colton McKivitz, Justin School, Mike McGlinchey. That's it. That's it. Was that 8 drafts? They've drafted 4 offensive tackles, and none of them are good. That's a very important position. And you're looking at guards in round 3. Like, it's cool that you took a cornerback in round 2 for the first time in 20 years, but what about offensive tackle? Why do the Niners hate that position? It's a really important position. And then afterward, John Lynch said, oh, it's cool. We really like Jalen Moore. He's super talented. BS. You really like him? If Trent Williams gets injured and misses a couple of months, you think they're going to like Jalen Moore enough to play him? Or you think they're going to make a trade? I bet you they make a trade. It's incredible the Niners are as good as they are without a quality right tackle, swing tackle. But they got a guard. They got 2 guards in this draft. Moving on to round 4. Now the Niners take a safety. Malik Mustapha. Strong safety. A guy who looks like he might be a good player down the line. But again, do the Niners need a starting safety now? No. Absolutely not. Maybe if Talanoa Hufanga never comes back from his torn ACL, yeah, but assuming he does, which he probably will, this is a pick for 2025. And he won't necessarily be an upgrade. Let's assume they're going to replace Talanoa Hufanga. This is his last year on the team. Well, Talanoa, say what you want about Talanoa. He's a playmaker. He may give up some catches and coverage. He takes some chances, but he gets it back. He consistently intercepts passes. He's also good against the run. He's a above average player. He's an asset to the defense. And you're already preparing to let him go. Why? Because he's going to be too expensive. Okay. So Malik Mustapha could be, I mean, he's younger. He's going to be cheaper. But he's not going to be better. So again, this is another pick that doesn't make the 49ers better. That's for 2025. So let's go through the first four picks. These are your most important picks. Wide receiver who's fourth on the depth chart. Cornerback who's fourth on the depth chart, maybe fifth. Guard who's can play all five positions, so a backup. Safety who might start in 2025. Man, that's kind of arrogant. Again, even the Super Bowl championship team, the Chiefs, made moves to get better now. And the Niners are like, we just can't get better now. It's impossible to be better than we are right now. We're just so good. And what I would say to that is, if that's the truth, if the Niners have this incredible roster, it's like a 99 on Madden, and it's just too good, and rookies can't help, then there's got to be something wrong with the coach, right? If the team is the best and you can't add anything to it in the draft, and the best you can do is add players for 2025, then something wrong with the coach. How can you not win a Super Bowl with a 99 roster with the best team in football? How? But the Niners never go there logically. They don't ever figure that out. I don't understand. I'm going to take some supers, and then we're going to do some Bet US. Let's take some supers. Gold Tau. How did we draft the oldest free agents and draft picks? Because you got coaches running this operation. Brother Really Kyle Bob says, Gold T, it's simple. Kyle Levy wants the most polished players for his system that hasn't won him a Super Bowl trophy yet. Higher floor, lower ceiling preferred. I feel like personnel people, Adam Peters, scouts, they project a future for a player, and they count on coaches to coach them up. Coaches look at potential and upside as things that could get them fired if they don't bring those traits out of the player. So I think coaches usually want finished products, which is not great. You're drafting for 2025 and adding older players. J-Rod 5 says, my dad watched the draft and got so upset by the 49ers draft choices that he left. I'm crying and vomiting. No, I'm sorry. Sid Brown. Looks like Kyle meant what he said in March. He thinks the talent on the O-line is fine. He's fine with Brock running for his life. He's fine with Trent missing time with no real replacement. Yeah, he is fine. And fine is all he aspires to on the offensive line. The offensive line it's not a sexy position. And it really doesn't do much for his image. The weapons do. All those wide receivers and running backs are an extension of his ego. Brother Bob says, we whiffed on OT, DT, and tight end for grooming replacements. Correct. Jeremy Price, what up, G? We don't have a team problem. Kyle's decision-making needs a tune-up. A tune-up? Dazza says, this draft might help us in 1 to 2 years, but not sure how we're much better this year, given we're trying to win a Super Bowl. Although, given the last 2 years of drafts, I'm very skeptical. JAL says, I don't think we got any better right now, even if some of these guys turn out to be really good. I was very disappointed overall. Sir Cash Money says, Kyle took your advice, Grant. Casey is the gold standard of the NFL. So when Casey took a wide receiver, they copied. When they took an offensive line, Kyle took one. No, took a DB. Joe Crowell says, we're all eating our words when the Niners ride their mighty all-guard offense to a divisional round exit. Yeah. Sid Brown says, the Niners believe they're better versus the Chiefs. The Niners believe they're better versus the Chiefs NFC. Well, prove it. You had a chance to prove it. You went to the Super Bowl, you lost. Stuart Damon says, Grant, post-Seifert Niners are bad for the collective soul of the Bay Area. Please call out this franchise face-to-face, the pain and loss of faith they have created. Okay, I'll do that for you. First, I want to shout out our sponsor, Bet US, the #1 online sports book, which is currently offering 125% deposit match up to $2,500. They also have 24/7 customer service and 24-hour payouts. Click the link in the description to receive your bonus. Let's check out what they got for us today on Bet US. go to football. After the draft, see what they got. How about next year's draft? First overall pick, 2025. Shador Sanders is projected to be the guy. Deion Sanders' kid. Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Drew Aller. I don't know how to pronounce these guys' names. Travis Hunter, Jackson with an X. What's the best name here? Harold. I think Harold is an underrated name. Is his last name Perkins? I like that name a lot. Harold Perkins. Michael with a Y. That's pretty edgy. I like that. Jackson with an X. Very edgy. Kids these days, man. Travis Hunter. He's a good player. He's the guy who plays for Colorado, right? Offense and defense. Jalen Milroe. Is that awful quarterback for Alabama? He's so bad. Is that the guy? Is that the guy? He's going to go 5th in the freaking draft? I'm betting on him for sure. Jalen Milroe. So good. Such a good player. $10. Yeah. What else we got? I'm not done. Coach of the year, offensive rookie. Ooh, offensive rookie. I want that one. I want that one. Caleb Williams. Hell no. Marvin Harrison Jr.? No. Jaden Daniels? No. JJ McCarthy? No. Where's Ricky Pearsall? Ricky Pearsall. Anyone on the Niners? Ricky! Plus 4,000? I don't think it's going to be Ricky. Someone have to get hurt. Who's it going to be? Who do you guys think in the chat? I want to know. Worthy? Yeah, Worthy. How about Worthy? Worthy. Plus 1,400? I'm going to say Worthy. The guy for the Chiefs. $50 to win 700. Can I do 100? 100? Yeah. Yep. Hold on, Jalen Milroe. I want to do 100 with you. Nope. 10. Okay. Those are my two bets. Xavier Worthy, plus 1,400. I could go. I'm going to go Ricky Pearsall just for fun. Because I want to win $4,000. And I got a feeling with this guy. I got the feeling. Yeah, here we go. Oh, yeah. 210 to make 5,500. Let's go. Feeling really good about Ricky Pearsall right there. Real good.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Okay, keeping going. Round 4. All of a sudden, the Niners getting aggressive. First 2 rounds, they just sat in their hands, waited for the board to come to them, didn't break the way they wanted. Round 4, they don't mess around. Traded up for a guard in round 3. And then in round 4, they trade up for a running back. Because that worked out. That's always worked out for them. They traded up for Trey Sermon. They traded up for Joe Williams. Now they're trading up for Isaac Guerendo. And what do we know about Isaac Guerendo? Hell of an athlete. Did great at the combine. Just outstanding at the combine. Ran a 4.3, 220 pounds. He was so good at the combine. You're thinking this is a guy who clearly dominated college football for years, right? No. He went to Wisconsin, and he didn't really do anything at Wisconsin in 4 years. So again, kind of like Ricky Pearsall, if COVID had never existed and he only had 4 years to play college football, this is a guy who who never would have been drafted. But he gets year 5, and he's a big dude, 220 pounds, transfers, goes to Louisville, and has a decent season. Decent. Not what you would expect from a 220-pound running back who runs a 4.33. But he's okay. And the Niners trade up to get him because they just couldn't live without him. Now, Roger Rosengard, the offensive tackles in rounds 1 and 2, they can take him or leave him. You know what I mean? If they're there, they're there. You know. But if they're not there, who cares? But Isaac Guerendo, heaven forbid someone else takes this guy. You have to get Isaac because running back isn't the strongest position on the team. It's not like you have Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in football, and Jordan Mason, one of the best backup running backs in football. No. You got to upgrade the Elijah Mitchell spot because he gets hurt. It hasn't really been the same in the last few years, and you need a third running back. Like, if they'd stood pat in round 4 and Garendo would drop to them and they drafted him, I'd still be like, why? Why? When is he going to play? I'll tell you right now, Jordan Mason's better than this guy. So what is he? What's the point? I don't get it. He's an older player. He didn't do much in college. He has nice combine numbers. And he's not going to be first string or second string. This was a waste of a pick. A running back. And you look at his draft profile on NFL.com, indecisive. It's not great. I don't know. I'm surprised by this one. Then they signed a running back as an undrafted free agent. And instantly, I'm thinking this guy's going to be better than this guy. And frankly, the guy they signed as an undrafted free agent produced in college. He was the SEC's leading rusher. This guy never produced. But he's a great athlete. And they traded up for him. And he's not going to play. Other than that, hell of a pick. Josh Wyatt, what would Jim Harbaugh do? For the first time in a decade, we don't have to guess. He loaded up the trenches to take advantage of light, modern fronts. That's correct. Addicted to Action says, talk about the UDFAs, Grant. Like your show, your dad has great insight and great story about Bill Walsh and the team in the 80s and 90s. Least Niners signed T.O. son. I will get to the undrafted free agents after, I promise. Dad says, it's great that we have another running back that Kyle Shanahan will never use. How quickly will Kyle Shanahan sour on Isaac Garendo? A day, a month, a year? Over under a month. J.R. Beckeld says, worst draft since Trent Baalke days based on needs. I'm not done. We're still going. Still in round 4. Jacob Cowing, a wide receiver. They've already taken one wide receiver. They already missed the offensive tackles. But run defense is an issue. It was not good last year. It got completely exploited in the playoffs. The Packers exploited it. The Lions exploited it. The Chiefs exploited it. It's not good enough. In this offseason, the Niners cut their best run defender on the D-line, Eric Armstead, and replaced him with Malik Collins, who's not particularly good against the run. They also signed Leonard Floyd, who's not particularly good against the run. They also lost Dre Greenlaw, who's excellent against the run, and replaced him with Devondre Campbell, who was on a defense that gave up more than 2,000 yards on the ground last year. He's not good against the run. So the Niners' run defense, which wasn't good last year, did get worse this offseason. And it's not that hard to find people who can address that. Like round 4, you could probably find a linebacker or a defensive tackle or a defensive end who can stop the run. Instead, you draft a 5'8" wide receiver who's not even 170 pounds, who specializes in lining up in the slot, a day after you drafted a wide receiver who's 180 something pounds, who specializes in lining up in the slot. 2 wide receivers in the first 6 picks. The first guy didn't fill a need. This guy for sure doesn't fill a need. So you're looking at picks for 2025 yet again. If Ayuk and Jennings aren't on this team next year, they have replacements. But like, you could have gotten replacements next year. You don't necessarily have to draft a year in advance all the time, especially when you have needs now, like on the D line, at linebacker. Malik Mustapha could help the run defense if he plays, which he won't. Not at first. So some way to improve the run defense might have been cool. Yetur Gross-Matos, Jordan Elliott, they signed them. They're not starters. I was expecting a nod to the run defense at some point. But no, a 5'8", 160-something pound wide receiver. I'm sure they're looking at Tank Dell, the slot receiver for the Texans. Texans run the same offense as the Niners. He had a lot of success last year. Maybe the Niners feel that Jacob Cowan could do the same thing. But again, is he going to play in 2024? No. Because he would have to take Juwan Jennings' job. And he won't. You know why? Because Juwan Jennings is good. Juwan Jennings is underrated, underutilized. He's a good player. He's not just a serviceable number 3. He's an excellent number 3 and a guy who could be a number 2 on a lot of teams. A lot of teams. He runs a 4.7. So does Keenan Allen. Those two are kind of similar. I'd like to see Juwan Jennings get a nice contract from another team. He's kind of getting disrespected here. All he did was step up for the Niners in the playoffs when the other weapons wouldn't. And the Niners come back and draft 2 slot receivers like Juwan. Oh, you caught a touchdown pass and threw for a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl? You should have rushed for a touchdown as well. Come on. He might end up being good, but you doubled up on a position you don't need. Then they don't draft for a long time. Jacob Cowan was picked 135. John Lynch said there were 170 draftable players. They have 2 picks after 170. Jarrett Kingston is picked 215. So we're looking at this as a glorified undrafted free agent, a guy who's probably going to get cut and end up on the practice squad. Jarrett Kingston played at USC. Different than Dominic Puni, another guard, both guards. Puni 6'5", runs a 5.35. He's slow. If you compare his combine results, they're very similar to Aaron Banks or Colton McKivitz. Jarrett Kingston, 6'4", barely 300 pounds, fast. The kind of guy that, he's like more like Spencer Burford. In fact, he's a lot like an undrafted free agent the Niners signed last year that people went crazy for. Joey Fisher. Remember Joey Fisher? About 6'4", 290-something pounds, ran like a 5 flat, super strong. Thinking, man, this guy's got all the traits. Didn't make the team. I don't even think he made the practice squad. What was the problem with Joey Fisher? He had the shortest arms ever. Ever. They were like 32 inches. And that's just not long enough for a guard. Because guards often are one-on-one against defensive tackles who often have 34-inch arms. And if you got 32, you're going to get ragdolled. So Joey Fisher couldn't play guard. He would have to learn how to play center, and he can't. So he's gone. Jarrett Kingston. He can't play guard. He has all the movement skills and the size that they want from a right tackle. Remember, right guard. The right side of their offensive line is light by design. That's where they want to run the outside zone and the jet sweeps. And that's where the cutbacks come. It's not where they want to create movement at the point of attack. That's the left side. So he has the body to play right guard for this team, but he doesn't have the arms. So he's going to need to, they're either going to find that out the hard way or they're going to try to teach him how to play center. He's never played center in a game. And I don't like, the Niners are not good at drafting offensive linemen. When they have success, they take a guy and keep him at his original position. Aaron Banks played left guard in college. He plays left guard for the Niners. A lot of times the Niners will take a guy who played, let's Spencer Burford. He played left tackle in college, and they say, oh, that's great. He's going to be a perfect right guard for us. And you don't say why. And he comes to the team, and he spends years trying to learn how to play right guard, and it doesn't go well because he's not a right guard. If you're going to draft someone, you got to let him play the position they played in college. You got to let him do the things that he did to get on the NFL radar in the first place. So drafting Jarrett Kingston to play guard, that won't work. His arms aren't long enough. Drafting him to play center, that won't work. He's never played center. If you want to develop a guy who's never played center, do it on the practice squad. Maybe this guy will be on the practice squad, but this guy may not play for years if he ever plays. And he's older. Last pick of the draft, they take a linebacker. Finally, they address a need. How funny. An immediate need. They wait until their final pick. Tatum Bethune, Florida State. 5'11", 230, runs a 4.7. If you look at his pro day numbers, they're almost identical to Dre Greenlaw's. Doesn't mean he's Dre Greenlaw, but they've had success with Dre Greenlaw. A lot of teams would overlook Dre Greenlaw. He fell to the 5th round. He's 5'11". A lot of teams want taller linebackers. The Niners don't mind shorter ones on the outside. So they take a guy who fits the template and cross their fingers, see what he can do. He probably won't make the team. They drafted 2 linebackers late last year who didn't make an impact, but it's just funny. He checks the boxes. Well, he might improve the run defense. That's what his job is. He might play this year, right? Because they have Fred Warner. Dre Greenlaw's not going to be back for a while. And so they got Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell, who probably has 1 foot in retirement, and a bunch of nothing after that. Special teams guys. So if Tatum Bethune has got anything going for him, he could start pick 251, which would make this draft a lot like the one 2 years ago when the only player who mattered was freaking Brock Purdy. I like this pick. They probably should have taken a linebacker rounds ago instead of trading a running back, instead of taking the second wide receiver, instead of taking a safety. Linebacker was arguably the biggest need on the team. It was right there with offensive tackle. You don't have a third linebacker, and your second linebacker is terrible. Sorry, Devondre Campbell, but it's over. You're cooked. Dre Greenlaw, you don't know when he's coming back or what he'll be like when he comes back. Tatum Bethune, like the first realistic draft pick they made. 252. Eager to see what he does. Which brings us to the big picture. I think when people grade a draft, they usually go player by player and then try to give like a GPA. Well, if I give this guy an A- and I give this guy a B+, let's just tally it up like they would in high school. An A is 4 points, a B+ is 3.3, and so on, and just average it out. That's not how I'm doing it. I'm looking big picture here. I want to get lost in the details. The Niners had some things they wanted to accomplish. They wanted to get one of these offensive tackles that are special. They didn't do it. They needed to improve their run defense. They didn't do it. They needed to get better this year because they lost the Super Bowl last year, and the Chiefs got better this year. They didn't do it. And it was by design. It's not like they came into this draft and said, we want to get better right now, and then failed. They came into the draft and said, we want to get better in 2025. That's where the complacency, that's where the arrogance comes in. A really underwhelming draft because we'll have to wait a year to see what it's all about. And this is not a young team. If it was a really young team and the coach was just getting started, you might understand. No, you never understand. You can't draft for a year down the line. The whole draft can't be dedicated for a year down the line. Under no circumstances. You're rebuilding. You're on the cusp. You play for now. The goal is to get better now. Every team in the NFL tried to get better now except the Niners because the Niners, it's impossible. So, and then after the draft, Kyle Shanahan literally was asked about how he felt about the offseason, and he said, hopefully I don't think we got worse. Hopefully I don't think we got worse. Inspiring stuff. The Niners came into the offseason and their goal was to not get worse. You're not the best team in the league. The goal is to get better. You didn't. So I don't hate the draft. It's possible that in year 2, year 3, a couple years down the line, Ricky Pearsall will be starting. Dominic Puni will be starting. They could have 2, 3, 4 starters from this draft, in which case that would be a successful draft. But if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, and part of the reason is because 0 of their rookies contributed, that's a whiff. That's a missed opportunity. Once again, they're the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl this year, and they didn't really do anything to help. So my final grade for this draft is a C. It's average. They didn't move the needle. They treaded water. They didn't get worse, to Kyle Shanahan's point, but they could have gotten an offensive tackle who's better than Colton McKivitz right now. There's probably 12 in this draft, and they didn't get that guy. They could have got younger. They drafted a bunch of players who are about 24. I don't see how you can give this draft better than a C grade. Maybe it'll replace their roster down the line, but what are you building for? That's the question. If you have an older team and you say you're all in for 2024, then you'd think the goal for the draft is to get some players who help that cause. But when you draft exclusively for 2025, it makes it seem like you're not all in for 2024. You're building for the future. You already have your eyes set on, well, what's life going to look like when Purdy's making a ton of money? Okay. That's great. So I'm not betting on the Niners to win the Super Bowl this year. Doesn't seem like they'd be happy if they won it. It'd be nice. But they're not going to do anything materially different to make that happen. Meanwhile, the Chiefs are changing. How much have the Chiefs evolved? The Chiefs evolved like 2 times in the last few years. The Niners haven't evolved at all. It's the same formula. Meanwhile, the Chiefs won a Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill. And then NFL defenses literally changed to stop them. All of a sudden, you're getting all these 2 high safeties, take away the deep pass, concede the run. All to stop Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs. They lose one Super Bowl, they completely evolve. All right, you know what? We're going to go to short passes, multiple tight ends, and running the ball. They win back-to-back Super Bowls that way. And as defenses are trying to scramble to adjust to this new style of Chiefs offense, now they go out and add Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy to bring some speed back. Once again, they're staying one step ahead of what people are, of the defenses that are trying to figure them out. The Niners are staying the same. Because in Kyle's mind, it works. They have found a championship formula, and the fact that they haven't won a championship yet is just a fluke. And what they need to do is not overreact to flukes. They need to stay the course and stay exactly the same and not get worse. I'm not going to say that's a loser's mentality, but it's not a champion's mentality. I don't see how you become it. The Niners' whole attitude is, if we keep doing things the same, hopefully one day fortune will smile on us and we'll get a championship. No. Something's wrong with your formula. It's either that your roster is flawed in some way, which it probably is, or your head coach isn't good enough. One or the other. C for the final grade. J.R. Beckel got you. Daza, what's wrong with Winters and Graham? I've heard they look good in camp. They didn't play last year, so we'll see what they do. Boxing Fan Times 4, what a great idea to trade down and help Chiefs get a new offensive tackle to hug Bosa and then to trade up for Puni so that we can be even worse at running right. I'd like to know if any of you guys thought it was better than a C. It wasn't a bad draft, but it was underwhelming. All 8 picks for 2025 when you were the second best team last year and the first best team just improved. What are you going to do? Anyway, that's the Grant Cohn Show. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with the usual suspects breaking down the Niners draft as it compares to the NFC West drafts. Thanks for watching, everyone.